This episode of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Gohan from Dragon Ball Super, and you are listening to A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. Excuse me, Gohan, this is more of a narrator type thing. Okay. Just do it more like a, next time on Talk Time Live. Next time on Talk Time Live. Don't quit your day job, Gohan.
It's time. Talk time. Let's go. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live. Started in the 80s with Matt Cross. Dudes in the hood might have called that soft, but I carried that cross like Jesus did. Fast forward, I teach the kids to learn how to let go, live life, and show love to all things that don't matter where y'all from. And luckily, there's a show called Talk Time. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Dax kicks the facts on all the geek news, special guests and unbiased reviews. Suburban kids, the hipster street dudes, all can learn something new. Me too. I heard words with no faith is empty. I stayed the course, so my haters tempt me. Beat the podcast, that'll make them envy. It ain't too trendy, it's A.C.M.G. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the journal of my life that covers all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the Prime Show. I am your host, Xavier Desai. I hope everybody's having a great week. Like I said on the Select Start episode, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and very safe Thanksgiving for that matter. This episode is going to be a lot of fun to talk about because on our talk topic today, we're going to be covering the Marvel 616 documentary series on Disney Plus, which covers a lot of different subjects that we don't get to talk about or we don't hear about much in terms of the Marvel comic universe. The first episode is something near and dear to me because if you're an old comic book convention buff like me, and I'm not talking about San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or any other of these new age Comic-Cons or conventions that we go to now. I'm talking about the old school comic book convention where you just go to get some exclusive or rare comics. You, in particular, like some good deals out of there, some really exclusive things you never get before. But most of all, tape trading. Tape trading came from comic book conventions like the ones that we used to go to back in the day in the 90s. And before the glitz and glamour and cosplaying and all this stuff, tape trading was one of those spectacular things that you could do because you would get things that that were hard to find. And without the internet back then, as strong as it is now, it was even harder to find it. So comic book conventions were probably the best place to get these rare treasures. One of which would be tapes of rather cartoons we haven't seen in years or ever before, to like the X-Men pilot from the 80s or the 60s series, you know, the stop motion comic book series that they used to air back in the day. But one in particular was a tape that you can find at a comic book convention, which included episodes of Japanese Spider-Man. And this is a show that was exclusive to Japan at the time. We were never supposed to see this, yet somehow, some way through tape trading, we were able to get a hold of that. And we would have to buy it in stores. The first thing I saw when I went to my first comic book convention ever was, in fact, the Japanese, like, as soon as we go into the comic book convention, all we see is like a booth, a table with tapes and a TV screen, and all you see is Spider-Man with a robot and a car, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? Why is this happening? I want more of this. And in fact, there was a Japanese Spider-Man that some people may actually don't know about. Like, if you're a hardcore Marvel comics fan or a comic book fan, you know about this. But many, they don't. Disney Plus via Marvel has a documentary series called Marvel 616, and they are covering, the first episode is covering Japanese Spider-Man. So we get more detail about what went into this, how this started, and all the stuff. So we're going to talk about that in detail on our talk topic of the week today on this episode. I'm looking very much forward to talking about this because I watched the series back then. I actually just recently brought a t-shirt with the Japanese Spider-Man theme on there. It's awesome. And I'm looking forward to talking about this. This is just something that kind of is near and dear to me, and I hope this leads Disney Plus to adding those episodes onto the series, because I think it'll be awesome. It's like, okay, why not just add it on? We'll talk about that later on. We also got some news to talk about, some good and some sad news. So let's not waste any time, folks. Let's find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
And now, it's time to find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
All right, let's start with the sad news first, and one of which is that it is still hitting us to this day. It's November 30th, 2020. We just got through a hell of an election. We just went through a lot of loss and a lot of dark times, and things, thank goodness, is starting to soften up. But we can't forget that we lost a king throughout all this. Yesterday, November 29th, 2020, would have been the 43rd anniversary of the Black Panther himself, Chadwick Boseman. It was his birthday. He would have been 43. He was born on November 29th, 1976. And while he lived a short life, he gained a lasting legacy. And, I gotta say, it's just still shocking. It just so much has gone on in 2020, and we cannot forget that we lost. This is probably has to be the most shocking of all passings this year, because it came out of nowhere. It's just amazing. Just what he did in his days leading into him going into a pasture, it's just nothing short of phenomenal. And it's something, because we live in a short attention society, we tend to quickly forget the things that happens. And I think we need to condition ourselves to start thinking more thoroughly, more in detail, to remember things like this. Like Chadwick, if you guys remember, the stories that you heard after he passed, and when everybody was shocked to hear this, not only just that he passed, but the things that he was doing leading up to it. He was still supporting, cancer, people, kids with cancer. He was still, being a hero to them. He was still working. There's still movies that are going to be coming out even after this fact. Like, Netflix is about to come out with another movie that stars him as well, coming soon. He's an amazing man. He was an amazing man. He deserves to be called king. He deserves to be called a true hero. Happy birthday, Chadwick Boseman. And, again, thoughts and prayers to the wife, family of Mr. Boseman. And it's just gone too damn soon. Wakanda forever, my man. So, remember, November 29th, a king was born. Definitely remember that. Also, some other sad news, and this is quite of a contrast here, is that Star Wars actor Dave Prouse died at the age of 85. Many of you may not know this. Star Wars fans do know the name. Hardcore Star Wars fans, I should say, definitely knows his name. He was the man behind the Vader outfit. He was the one that was doing all the moves, the fighting, and all that stuff during the first original trilogies. He was born in 1935 in Bristol, England. Before his performances in the Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, he was a bodybuilder. where he used to hang out with the likes of legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Luther Rigno and many others. He also trained the legendary Superman himself, Christopher Reeve. This is really amazing. George Lucas actually hired him to play the role, but realized that his accent wasn't playing into the character that he was depicting. So this led to Lucas hiring the one and only James Earl Jones to dub the iconic voice of the Sith Lord, because, lo and behold, as much as we love James Earl Jones, from a body frame standpoint, he doesn't fit the look that he wants. So they George Lucas brilliantly just combined the two together. And I don't think anybody's done it like that since. So, it was like a match made in heaven between the two. It would have been really cool to see those two being interviewed at the same time. If it's out there, somebody please let me know. I don't know, but it would have been really cool to see that. But, Dave, he died at 85, but man, look at the legacy. Talk about a legacy. You compare that to Chadwick Boseman. It's like they both have some really everlasting legacies here. Although be it one, left damn near half the amount of years that the other one did. So it's amazing. It makes you really feel how much more valuable Chadwick Boseman's short-lived career was. What he was able to do in that short amount of time compared to people like Dave Prouse, who lived throughout 80 and was able to do a lot of great things. This is kind of the idea, people, that you should take into consideration, and to say, no matter how long you live, is what you do in it is what matters. No matter, you could live as long as 80 to 90. You could live as long as 43. You could die today or tomorrow, but live with no regrets. Live knowing that you gave it all. Live knowing that you are very satisfied with everything you did. Leave knowing that you put in all of the effort and energy to doing what you love. And I always say this to myself all the time. If today is my last day, I don't regret what I did yesterday, because I am very proud of the work that I put into doing all of what I've done, everything that I've done to this day. So rest in peace to both of them, indeed. So let's continue to Star Wars news here, because I got to talk about my thoughts on the latest episode of The Mandalorian. If you all have seen it, you know that this is possibly the most important episode of the entire series, which debuted Rosario Dawson as the fan favorite Clone Wars character, Ahsoka Tano, who was the former protege of Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, in the animated series. And it's funny, truth be told, and this is how much of a Star Wars fan that I am not, because I stopped watching that series, I think possibly in the second season. I just fell off it, not realizing how, and I heard everybody, especially on the A.C.M.G. Facebook group during those years, that it got so much better, that it was really great, that the writing and the directing was awesome here. And I just come to terms that I was just not a Star Wars fan to that extent. But I am still a Star Wars fan to the point that I can really watch it, but not be a fan like I am the way I am with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I grew up a Marvel fan. And pretty much. But Dave Filoni directed this episode, and you could tell, because Dave Filoni is also, for what fans know, Dave Filoni is also the director of the Clone Wars episode. So it was only right that he create this episode and have that character in. And there was talks about Rosario Dawson playing this role, but it wasn't concrete. Not everybody really knew it was really concrete. It was just word saying, well, it exactly happened in that way, and I'm glad it did, because she did phenomenal. When I saw her in the whole entire, in the cosmetic of Tano, I lit up. majorly because I know how popular this character is. I knew this was a big deal. I empathize for hardcore Star Wars fans when I saw this, and I'm like, oh, people are gonna need tissues, boxes of tissues when they see this, when they see her premiere. It is just awesome. She did a phenomenal job playing this role, and she played a much more older version of it because it's eons after the events of the Clone Wars situation. So she's a lot older and more mature, and she is a Jedi Master at this point. So she's far removed from the days of being a protege. It was just awesome, and I thought Rosario Dawson, who I am a huge fan of, love no matter what she's in, but in particular Clerks 2, I was really a big fan of her on that. She just, you crushed on her heart on that damn movie. But she did so awesome in this, playing that. And the deal was that the Mandalorian was seeking help to have her train the kid. And in previous episodes, they, he was given advice to seek her for advice. They didn't say who it was. They just said that I know where you need to go to make sure that he's well trained as a Jedi and to train his force powers. We didn't realize who this was, but we found out in this episode. So Dawson playing Tano was not only a gift giving to Star Wars fans, as she revealed something else. She actually revealed the name of Baby Yoda, which we now put to rest the name Baby Yoda, as we were introduced or reintroduced to Grogu. Grogu is the name of Baby Yoda, and we can now put that Baby Yoda thing to pasture, or even the kid is what Mando would call him. So like, that's just done. I don't mind. The name is cool. I like the name. It's pretty cool. I think we'll get used to it. Baby Yoda was just such a sweet name to call him because he's a sweet little character in here, and almost a Pikachu level. So, but the thing was that, Asuko declined to train Grogu because of the growing bond between the kid and Mando. So now it is up to Mando to make sure that Grogu becomes the powerful Jedi he was destined to be, which kind of sounds like Mando has become a Pokemon trainer at this point. So the episode was completely awesome. It was the first time I ever wanted to watch The Mandalorian twice, and I'm so excited about this. Even if this was a one-time deal, what this episode did by having that character in there, by having Rosario Dawson play that character, is that it legitimized everything that they created in the Star Wars lore, right down to the actual, cartoon connections and everything. Like I told people in the A.C.M.G Facebook group that this was the equivalent of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, which connected to the Winter Soldier. And that's when you made it important. And we finally got to see something like this because that character is connected to the animated universe, and it was always been said that the events of the animated universe is directly connected to the events of the three trilogies of the prequels. And this totally legitimizes it. This, in fact, was not only the best episode in the entire series since Series 1 and Series 2. This is literally the most important episode of anything that has ever been done in Star Wars, connecting this all together. And it's just fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I thought she did a great job. And what was so awesome about this episode was that the fighting. I mean, it was... They gave us everything. It was gunslinging, gunfights. There was sword fights. There was force battles. There was fanfare. There was everything. This felt more like Star Wars than anything I've ever watched in any of the episodes. And I love every episode of The Mandalorian. So, I mean, boy, this was so awesome. Unfortunately, she won't be on next week, but I love the fact that they have a different director on every episode. It's a collage of different creative, visions. And I really enjoy what Jon Favreau has done. And I'm sorry, but this one knocked it out the park here. Dave Filoni really, really he set the standards for how you're doing this show. Because it's going to be interesting to see how the other episodes are going to be. But it's awesome. I love this series. That episode right there was my favorite. So, last bit of news that I have for this segment is something I never got a chance to talk about on our Select Start. This is gaming news. Didn't get a chance to talk about this because I wanted to focus on that stupid PlayStation 5 bot situation. And if you didn't hear my... I don't want to call it a rant. I'll just call it an editorial at best. But if you didn't hear about that and why I believe I understand and know how we can actually stop and prevent these bots from happening and all these underground selling of PlayStation 5s, go check out the recent episode of Select Start. And especially if you haven't gotten a PlayStation 5 yet and you're eager to get one, please listen to that before you make a bad investment of getting one of these eBay edition PS5s here. So, I mean, just definitely go out of your way to check it out. But I didn't get a chance to talk about this, and I'm extremely excited about this. I got this late in the game, but Square Enix announced a sequel to The World Ends With You coming 2021. I was blown away when I saw this because I didn't think in my dreams I even thought that they would continue doing anything different to the series. The game is going to be called Neo, The World Ends With You, which will include an all-new cast of characters entering the contest. This time the game will be fully rendered in 3D with the awesome art style of Tetsuya Nomura. And I am very excited about this because I love the original game. There's no word on the control scheme or whether it will be like the first game where it relied on touchscreen gameplay, which I hope it doesn't. I hope that it'll allow us to use, because it's now on the Nintendo Switch. I hope they allow us to use actual control schemes that doesn't involve touchscrene features, because that part bothers me, and I don't understand why they didn't reconfigure the first game to make it that way. I thought that they could easily do that, but it was just a straight port from the iOS version. So I don't know, but I hope this one is different. I hope this one, because I love the game, I love the story, and if you guys recall, the anime is coming out sometime in 2021, which is based on the original game series. So if you haven't checked out The World Ends With You and you're an RPG fan and a Square Enix fan, you got to go out of your way to check this out. So it's, as far as I know, this is going to be exclusive to Nintendo Switch, and it will be coming out summer of 2020. So I am very excited for that. Folks, that will do it for what's new in the world of A.C.M.G. We're going to take a break, come back, and we're going to talk deeply about Marvel 616 documentary series, the first episode covering Japanese Spider-Man. We'll do that right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Xavier Josiah, the host of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our A.C.M.G. content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things A.C.M.G.
Talk Time Live.
Hey, this is Jeff Thorne. I am the writer, producer, showrunner of the Avengers Black Panther's Quest TV series, and you are listening to A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live.
Do it.
And now it's time for our talk topic of the week. Ready? Play!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our talk topic of the week, and it is my review of Marvel 616 documentary series, the first episode that is focused on the Japanese Spider-Man series. As I am looking at it on my screen in my office right now, I am astounded that they are covering this. It is so awesome. I mean, like, talk about if you ever want a reason to get Disney Plus, and if you're a Marvel fan, they're giving you everything. I mean, everything. Well, I wouldn't say everything, because if they don't give us the actual series to this, and I don't understand why they wouldn't. Like, we got the anime. We got the Japanese anime from them. I don't understand. It would be a no-brainer to allow us to see the Toei, company, series of Japanese Spider-Man. They already covered this. Why not just bring the whole thing? I hope they do. But because I think everybody should see it, no matter how ridiculous it may look in this time and era. It's something to behold. It's something it's an historical milestone, if you will. But Marvel 616, for those who don't know, is a anthology documentary series that goes deep into the history and culture of the Marvel comic universe. The series provides 8 episodes covering the vast and diverse world that is Marvel Comics, and has created a lot of content and culture throughout the span of decades. So they're covering a lot of things that doesn't get talked about much in terms of the comic book universe and the fandom that has come along with it and has grown for years in it. So some of you may know and some of you may not know about it, but the series also celebrates the fandom as well as the fans, while reminding us that anyone can be an artist, a writer, a producer, and of course a hero. And that's what this whole entire 616 series covers, and in such a beautiful way. I love it because they're showing like manga from Japan, and one of them is Kinnikuman. It's really interesting to see Kinnikuman in a Marvel related media content right here. So Japanese Spider-Man is the first episode that they're covering. They're doing a documentary. Each documentary is different. They're covering different aspects of the universe and the brand that they have built throughout the years. And Japanese Spider-Man is the first in 1978, which was a year after I was born. Marvel Comics and Japanese distributor Toei, which you guys have known to have a lot. It does a lot of the Super Sentai series as well as anime series as well. Toei signed a deal to bring Marvel characters to Japanese television. The first collaboration was a massive hit that revolutionized an entire genre of popular Japanese entertainment. So the episode starts with a man by the name of Gene Pelk, who was Marvel's representative from 1976 to 1985. He explains that 3 people brought him to Japan, which was his wife, Stan Lee, and of course Spider-Man. He talked about how he noticed the abundance of manga in Japanese, including Kinnikuman no More, which is what I just saw Astro Boy there showing too on this, in this as an example. He was surprised not to see actual American comic books sold. If you guys ever read manga, and if you read comics, you know that there's a stark contrast in the two, and one, and particularly, is how we read the books. One is from left to right, the other is from right to left. So, you read it in that sense. There's also a sense of narrative as well, So he contacted Stan and asked why their books were not being displayed and sold in Japan. To which they said that they sent some books over there. It didn't really sell much over there, so they decided to opt out. He then convinced them to do so otherwise. He talked about how in the Japanese, their audience prefer books that are more focused on visual rather than dialogue like we do to tell a story. Gene then felt that they could definitely sell their characters in Japan if they do it in the way that the Japanese audience would like. So he also did notice in the too, and when he explained it, that there was a popular type of entertainment in the form of Super Sentai series such as Kamen Rider, Go Ranger, the Power Rangers. But the Power Rangers didn't come out, I believe, till way later. But the earliest one is possibly Kamen Rider. And then Go Ranger, I think, came right after it. But and there were other Super Sentai shows that were out there, but felt that Marvel can also cash in on it as well. So Gene reached out to director Yoshinori Watanabe of the Toei Company Ltd. or Limited, who is responsible for the most legendary shows in Super Sentai anime history, including like Dragon Ball and all those other, Yu Yu Hakusho, just a ton of Shonen Jump animes and manga that came to life in the form of anime and stuff like that. Power Rangers, I believe, especially even though in Japan it's not called Power Rangers. I believe Saban came up with that name. I could be wrong about that, but I digress. Stan Lee backed him up on this. You know, because if you guys know, Stan Lee is a guy who absolutely is a person who takes risk. And this is the part that I love personally about him in this. Is that, like, Stan Lee takes risk. I mean, he realized the circumstances of what he had to do and the risk that it could be, and he would jump at it. Some things that people today are too afraid to do is to take that jump. And it is not easy. You have to think thoroughly to do stuff like this, to take risks like this, because not every time is gonna be successful, and you will have to suffer some loss, and sacrifice. But it is worth it if you absolutely believe in it, and if you put in the effort and the passion of what you believe in, and that's what Stan Lee has done. And because of that, he backed Gene into this, and they went on with it. The deal was to create a version of the web slinger, I should say, that is more assimilated to the Japanese culture. They did that definitely in this. The other part of the deal was to make this for Japan, and it was something that was never meant to be seen in Japanese in American eyes. Although, of course, like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, that through tape trading and through comic book conventions, we were able to witness this, and we all knew about this way before. So, which also tells you about the lore of the fanfare and lore of their fans to go so hardcore is that we actually were able to get a hold of those tapes. So it was awesome. And this is but way before the internet. Like, this was AOL era. So we would not be able to get that type of resource that we got now. Like, if you kids grew up during high-speed internet age and Fios age and all this stuff now, I kind of hate you guys. Because you never had to go through what we had to go through back in the day when we had to. Our dial-up consists of our hookup being to a telephone line, and if you're online and somebody in your house picks up the phone, completely cuts you off from the internet, and you gotta go back on again. And it was a very tedious thing and a very annoying thing with all those damn noises that you had to hear just to get into it. And sometimes it wouldn't even go through it, and sometimes it would mix into a fax machine. But I digress. We didn't have those resources that we have now to get information in seconds like we did before, because the internet was something still so new. So we had to get it in other fashions. And Gene talks about how, basically the shows that they had in Japan was infomercials to sell their toy line, much like, they kind of did here what Hasbro did with G.I. Joe and Transformers, which also was something that they were, it was kind of, they used the same practice that they did over there. So, Spider-Man did not have a robot or anything that resembles that, what other Super Sentais had at the time going into this. So, through interesting brainstorming, they hired toy designer Katsushi Murakami to design a robot Spidey, or a robot for Spidey, I should say. After strategic thinking, and I'm using quotations here, they somehow came up with the concept for Spider-Man to have a robot that resembled a Sphinx that transformed into a robot. This was a quote-unquote game changer, as it was the first robot to ever transform. While this was groundbreaking at one point, one might ask, and they actually did ask this in the documentary, why wasn't the robot considered to be a spider? Unfortunately, Murakami couldn't really give a dignified answer to that. He just said that, they hired me to make a robot. I made a robot. I don't ask questions. That's the 70s, people. That's how the 70s are. Like, there was no... I think a lot of times because we've never seen anything like we see today, that the thought process was so nuanced back then that just seeing something that's just at all inspiring and spectacular like that, you don't think twice about the logic of it. And that's how it was back then in the 70s, the 80s, or even the 60s. When things that nuance came in, you don't think twice about it. You just are excited, and it's like cavemen seeing fire for the first time. You see it looks beautiful. It looks spectacular. It brings warmth. You don't realize the dangers of fire or the logic of don't put your hand in there until you start learning more and more about it. And then those questions start coming up. That's how it was for this, that era. They would create in cartoons as well. You would create all these things, and then later on, we question why did we go about it this way. Gilligan's Island, for those who were old enough to know that, there was a ton of questions in regards to the things that went on in that series and why they lasted in that island for all that time. I'll give you another example. Just recently, Saved by the Bell just came out with a new series, and it plays on the ideas or the lack of ideas and logic to the old series, and they make fun of that. They make light of the whole entire concepts of certain episodes that went on during that time. And if you haven't watched the new Saved by the Bell, small, soft credit review, go out of your way. If you're a fan of that, go out of your way. I thought they did a fantastic job with that series, production-wise and just writing. You got some heavy-hitter writers for that, but I digress. But there were things back then that you questioned in terms of, logic, writing, dialogue, stuff like that. That's how it was back then for this. The way they filmed it, all types of stuff like that. So, the episode also talks about how this show contrasts from the live action American series from 1977 that Stan Lee hated. And they have him talking about how much he didn't like what they did to the 77 movie or TV series that they did back then, because they didn't consult. Stan was credited as a consultant, but they didn't really consult him as much, which made the 2000 Spider-Man with Sam Raimi so much better, because I felt he did exactly what they wanted him to do. And I think this is why Stan Lee now did cameos for content that he felt that they were doing. So if you ever seen Stan Lee do anything for a movie, he's in it because he believes in it. That's plain and simple. And that's including Fantastic Four movies, people. Because if you notice, he was in the first two Fantastic Four movies. He wasn't in the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movies, but he was in the first two Fantastic Four movies that had Jessica Alba in there. And Michael Chiklis and Johnny, what is his name? Captain America. Chris Evans. He was in with them. But he was not in he wasn't in the other Fantastic Four movie, that cluster, the last Fantastic Four movie. He was not in that. So he even played a DJ in a strip club in Deadpool. So that tells you how much he respects content, man. So that tells you right there. But he was not a fan of it. And a lot of reasons too. It didn't really do the show justice. The documentary then talks to the stars of Spider-Man, including actor Shinji Toto, who played Takuya Yamashiro, aka Spider-Man, their Spider-Man. It was never Peter Parker. It was a character named Yamashiro, and he basically was everything Peter Parker was not. He talks about his experience in there, and they talk about the story of Spider-Man. This Spider-Man was totally different from the original in terms of origin, protagonist, antagonist as well, villains, technology, and just how they filmed the show in comparison to the 1977 one in America. Takuya, the story is Yamashiro was a professional racer, and his father was an archaeologist. And somehow, some way, they encountered an alien threat who murdered his father. So that was his Uncle Ben moment right there. The alien threat then pursued Yamashiro, and who discovered his father's body. He then ran to try to get away from the aliens. I forgot. I don't even know what they called those aliens. I don't think they even mention it. But, they have him running into a cave and to get away from those aliens, the alien army, I should say, only to find a man named Garia, who was from the planet Spider. Again, this is 70s. This is 70s dialogue and narrative. It was simpler times, I should say. Garia gave Yamashiro a bracelet, which attached itself to him almost like symbiotic, and it injected Garia's blood into Yamashiro, which now gave him like the powers of Spider-Man. So he was able to do all the things that Spider-Man could do in America, but he had an extra little incentive in the form of the Sphinx and the car and all that stuff. The one thing that you will know about this show and basically many Super Sentai shows in Japan is that they are incredibly low budget. The great part about that, though, is to see how innovative these studios can be when limited with a budget to create something that is supposed to suspend our disbelief. Which is funny because, I saw this in 1977. The first Super Sentai series I've ever watched was like the Power Rangers. When I used to get the tapes, back in the day. And that's when I first saw the Green Ranger and realized that in Japan he died. Meanwhile, when Saban got the license for it, because of the popularity of the Tommy character, they decided to rewrite that narrative and keep him alive because of how popular Jason David Frank was playing that role, and he did. He was probably the reason why I really watched that, because I actually like the Japanese version better because they had a bit more dramatic feel to it. I could never know if the acting was great or not, but I liked what I saw from there, and it was just amazing to see because I'd never seen anything like it at the time. But they were incredibly low budget there, and it was just awesome because we see that today in today's market when we have fan made videos out there. Of people making some really incredible stuff. And now it's to the point that I feel like Americans have superseded Japan in this type of form of creativity, because I recently watched the, what was it? Kamen Rider W. And it was out, that premiered in 2010, just 10 years away from today. And you would think that special effects would have been a little bit more elaborate and evolved than it was in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. I was very surprised that that series was incredibly low budget, and I've seen fan made videos of some of our favorite fandoms had better production than what they did. Who is it? Jason Anu, who did the Street Fighter Assassin's Fist series before he even got the funds and the backing to do Assassin's Fist. He did his own thing, and his fan-made video of Ryu and Ken looked like it was had high production value to it, which I don't understand. I don't know if they are doing Super Sentai series today, but I would love to see what it's doing today as opposed to what they do now. Maybe I should just watch one of the American versions and see if they've evolved from that, because I was just very surprised at that. But it's what they do in the midst of this that is amazing here. And even including, the creative direction, especially when showing Spider-Man using his powers to climb walls and swing through web lines or whatever, which is something that the 1977 series never did. They always showed him climbing walls, but they never show him swinging and stuff like that. The fighting scenes was really crappy, but luckily the Japan version was much better in that sense. They hired stunt performers like Hirofumi Koga, who helped with those difficult tasks, and very difficult tasks, as he explained. They interviewed him on here as well. Gene talked about how they had to reuse clips to save money. Then they went on to talk about as well the origin of the GP7, which was the car that Spider-Man rode and used to fight off the alien threats and the villains in the game, or the bad guys, in which was a part of their toy line. The car was in fact named after Gene Pelk, who came up with the idea because he said he was a DJ back in the day, and they used to call him GP, and they just decided that they made the actual car GP7. So that was awesome. So he has somewhat of a legacy of his own in this case. So it was awesome. The show was able to last long enough to finish without being canceled, meaning that they were able to have a start, middle, and finish in it. There was one other really significant part about this actual show. This documentary is that when who was his name? Shinji Todo was talking about the scene where he actually, what was it? What was the scene where he was? See, the very first episode, I think, when he was viewing that his father died, the character's father, it was around the same time where his actual father died. So he was using that emotion from real world situations right there. And I thought that was really, really interesting that they did that. Plus, also, another significant part was Gene talking about how business was being done back then, where, him and the director of Toei were meeting at a restaurant where they just drink unconditionally, and he's and Watanabe's son was known to be the king of that type of format per se. It's like he drinks every time he leaves the job, and that's how they do business: drinking and having a handshake, and they work it out that way. It was not from contractual agreements, whatever. Gene seems to believe that once you shake a hand, it's by bond, maybe in Japan, but we know from history here, not everybody does that. As a wrestling fan, I've heard so many bad stories about that situation. So, honestly, I thought that this documentary was really, really good. The first episode of Marvel 616 is something to behold for not only those who know about the legend of this show, but also Spidey fans who may not have venture beyond that of the U.S. This episode is a must, but there are also some other great episodes too. I actually got a chance to see some really other fantastic episodes here that you might want to check out. Higher, Further, Faster also gives you the perspective of what it means to be a woman in what's perceived to be a male-driven industry. They interview a lot of the women responsible for the direction of a lot of characters, female and male. What I loved about that particular episode is that I'm a Spider-Woman fan. I love Jessica Drew. I grew up watching a cartoon. I actually read the comics because I love that. I'm reading the recent comics right now of Spider-Woman, which is really pretty good, actually. I love it from the artwork and the story. It's not lighthearted, but it's pretty good. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but it's a good narrative. And seeing Jessica Drew with the new red and black costume is really awesome as well. But they talked to, I forgot who the woman was, but one of the women that they interview was responsible for killing off the original Jessica Drew. And I say the original Jessica Drew because in the comics, they killed off Spider-Woman and they stopped the comics. I'm wondering if I still have that comic because I bought that comic. I actually shedded a tear reading that book. That and they also killed off Cloak and Dagger, I believe, too, at one point. The original Cloak and Dagger series. And I was really sad when they ended that series, and they gave it a special like variant cover for it because it showed somebody dressed in a Spider-Woman costume, really cool Spider-Woman costume, and they did it out. They really did it out, but I'm glad to see that they brought it back. But they also talked to the people, the women responsible for bringing, to revitalizing Captain Marvel, but also bringing in Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, as well. It's a really great episode. Amazing Artisans is another episode where they talk to the they cover the Latino fandom of it as well, and they also cover, which includes the coming of Miles Morales as a black and Latino, character, and how that really revolutionized, and the people behind that as well. There's another one, Lost and Found, where they discover comedian and actor Paul Scheer hosts this one, and they hunt for undiscovered characters in the Marvel Universe. There's an episode, Suit Up, about cosplay. There's another one called Unbox about the toy chest that of treasure toy lines that you may have not even seen before. The Marvel Method, which has Dan Slott on here as well, and they covered that aspect. And another one called Spotlight, which I believe it is Marvel created a series of one-act plays to challenge teenagers to explore the humans behind their favorite Marvel superheroes. So go out of your way to check it out. It's really cool, but I hope that from this, I hope that there's enough people that watched the first episode that hopefully talks them into, bringing in this series. I mean, it's probably, when you look at it, it's very outdated. There's a lot to it that you're looking at. It's like, I can't believe they came out with this and what they did here. But it's history. It's a part of history. And if not for that, we may not have gotten to where we are today. And what I love about it is that if you play in the Spider-Man video game, they recently, the first Spider-Man video game, they actually gave you some new skins. And one of them is a Common Rider Spider-Man suit, totally in anime form. Totally awesome. I love it. And it's funny that they did that and they just come out with this at the same time. Coincidence? Who knows? But go out of your way to check out the Marvel 616 series. If you're a Marvel fan, you'll love this. It's very awe-inspiring and just a lot of fun to watch. So, folks, that will do it for this edition of Talk Time Live. Thank you guys so much for checking out this and all of our episodes here on Talk Time Live. And again, I hope everybody's having a great holiday season so far. I hope everybody's keeping safe. This week on Select Start, I will be reviewing No More Heroes 2. So we're going to cover that and all of the news going on in the world of gaming as well. As I said, things are going to be slowing down because of the holiday season. So we'll see what's going to happen in the coming weeks. But we'll always have at least one episode going on this week. I know, Chris, we will be having a Wonder Woman episode. Wonder Woman 84 and all that stuff. And I can tell you this, it is very possible that this week we may have a Talk Time Live exclusive this week. So stay tuned for that and much, much more. So folks, please keep checking us out, subscribing, letting everybody where to find us. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, and Amazon Music as well. You can also check us out on our website, TalkTimeLive.com, where it's easily able to find all of our episodes as well as our exclusive episodes with some of the best and brightest in all of our favorite fandoms. So thank you guys again, and I really appreciate all the support and downloads that we've been getting on this show, more coming from all parts of the country and world. Definitely appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. So, folks, that will do it. On behalf of myself, this is Dak Xavier Josiah saying, learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. I am out of here. Take care and have a great week. Music for this episode is provided by Game Chops. Check out these great chiptune tracks and more at music.gamechops.com.